violence calls are common, but not like this.
Is the other guy still there?
Yep. I need a large pizza.
All right. How about medical? You need medical?
No. With pepperoni.
After this exchange, Tennick alerted officers to hurry.
Turn your sirens off before you get there. Caller ordered a pizza and agreed with everything I said that there's domestic violence going on.
Tennick says his intuition that something wasn't right kicked in, which to him reaffirms how important listening is in his line of work.
Thank you. How can I help you? Other dispatchers that I've talked to would not have picked up on this. They've told me they wouldn't have picked up on this.
Excellent dispatch work on the part of our dispatcher. Some dispatchers may have hung up.
Oregon Police Chief Michael Navarre told me that ordering a pizza to indicate domestic violence is something he's never heard of.
Not in all my years, not in my 42 years of law enforcement.
But coming up with some kind of code to alert 911 that you're in trouble is the right thing to do. The chief says if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, here's what you should do.
Somehow or another, convey to that police dispatcher that you're in trouble. And this woman did that. She did that not with her words, but with the tone of her voice.
Thanks to the quick thinking of both the caller and the dispatcher, the alleged abuser, Simon Lopez, was arrested and locked up.
He handled the call beautifully, and it had a happy ending.
The victim's daughter says when she made the call, she was hoping to keep the person hitting her mom from running away before police got there, and that strategy worked. And they also talk about texting to 911 as well, too, is a good way, if you can. Yeah. All right, and this story is also a reminder, if you or anyone you know is a victim of domestic violence, you can contact here locally the Alliance Against Family Violence and Sexual Assault, 322-0931. You can also call the 24-hour crisis hotline, 327-1091.
I've been meaning to record a video about something that's been on my mind over the last few weeks, which is that I don't think I've had as much fun making things as I once did. Because I remember years ago, whenever I started making animations and games, I was a lot more motivated than I am now. Now it feels a little bit more like a job, even though it's not really a job for me so much. Not that it's entirely that way by any means. I still have a lot of fun doing what I do, but it's just not quite the same. You know, it doesn't have that same, maybe novelty to it. Novelty might not be the whole picture here, but I haven't had the same feeling of magic as I did whenever I started, and I think there's a pattern to it. Not necessarily the same pattern for everything, but I know that with the esotericism of Bargo and a trigonometry animation project that I made in high school, One Night at Flumpty's, Riddle Transfer 2, a lot of those games were made specifically because I wanted to see people's reaction to them. Although not all of them. The first One Night at Flumpty's I pretty much just made for fun. I made it for myself and, like, a friend, and that was kind of it. It was just an inside joke. That's all the real reason was for making it. And it was just kind of interesting to try something new. But for my dream project, which you could call Project Comet, you could call it Project Paintbrush, or Patina's Paintbrush, I don't know what to call it in public. I have a name for it that's official, but I'm not going to reveal it anytime soon. Just, I haven't felt the magic. And I think the magic that I'm trying to look for stems back to way before I even started making games, and maybe that's where I can look to find it, because whenever I was really young, I was a youngin', I was always really interested in bringing things to life. Because for as long as I can remember, I've been really interested in Pixar and Nintendo, and there wasn't even really a point in my life where video games were not just kind of a daily routine almost. So I would draw pictures, and I would be frustrated with the fact that they didn't move like they do in Disney movies. I would get sticky notes and flip through them after making a bunch of little animations, but it felt like so much work for almost nothing because it was just an image on some paper and it would last like half a second, and I wasn't going to use, you know, thousands of pieces of paper just for something that nobody was likely to ever see. And I considered using a video camera to, like, record stuff, and there would be no production quality, and it wasn't going to be the same as animating, so I didn't really want to do that either. The thing that satisfied me for the longest amount of time, probably about a year, this was back when I was, I think, maybe 9. I'm not entirely sure anymore, but I made these video game guides for games that did not exist. And that was kind of my introduction to game design, you could say. By no means were these good games that I invented, but I used paper and pencil, and I stapled the papers together, and just tried to have fun making little games in my head, more or less. And they were not by any means original. They had some original elements to them, but for the most part, everything that I put into these little projects was directly influenced from something else. I had about 7 games that were about this French fry with arms and legs, stick arms and legs, and it didn't really make any sense. But I think kind of the essence of what I saw in these projects was, I wanted to make something like Mario 64, or Wario World, or Zelda Ocarina of Time, or Wind Waker, or whatever game I was playing at the time that I really enjoyed. And it wasn't so much, I want to make something that's totally my own. And I have a couple guides that are just straight up Zelda ripoffs. Like there's like The Legend of Lunetta or something, because that's a name that I found pretty in a baby name book. And the subtitle for one of them is, I think, The Piccolo of Time, which you can guess what game that's based on. And the other one was, this is a great name, Guardian of the Sanctified Empire, which was what I found by looking in Thesaurus to change up the words of Protector of the Sacred Realm, I think. So yeah, those were just straight up Zelda ripoffs. That didn't include Link, and didn't have any real original ideas, but that's just something I had fun working on. And, whenever I started making animations, whenever I finally found out that Flash existed and that I could do things with it, I made lots of stick figure fights because I was really into the, I think it's pronounced Xiao Xiao series on Newgrounds. I made a lot of Mario sprite parodies because I liked Randy Solom's work, and I didn't really focus very much on trying to make something totally original. And then eventually I felt this sort of inclination to veer from this highly derivative work because I felt like originality is what people kind of expect from me. Like, I need to be more of a creative person, I need to be more of my own person because originality is more impressive, I guess, than just parodying things. And I wanted to create more of an identity for myself, so I tried to completely abandon any form of parody, which didn't entirely work out, of course, because, I still made Esotericism of Bargo, One Night at Flumpty's, Undercook, things like that, and I'm probably going to make more stuff like that. It kind of depends on what inspires me, but I think that's maybe the trick here, is that I've been very concerned with originality and trying to make things make sense as opposed to what I used to do, which was just have no concern for whether or not something I was doing was totally unique and totally creative, and just have fun doing whatever. If something inspired me, I would rip that off and do something of my own with it, and then just have a good time. So I want to do something more like that now. I would like to still have my own identity with my work, but then again, nothing is truly original, and I think that's hard to argue, because anything that you see nowadays is maybe a remake or a re-release or a reboot. Anything that you see these days, if it's not a reboot or a remake, then there's clear inspiration from previous things. The original Legend of Zelda that has inspired so many of today's games, and then that in itself was inspired by, I think, Miyamoto looking through caves and things as a kid and trying to have his own little adventures. So everything is inspired by something. And I don't really feel like we have to hide, necessarily, our influences, what inspires us. If you look at the work of an artist, and it doesn't really even matter who it is, it doesn't matter if it's a comic artist that you found on Tumblr and are following on Twitter or something, or if it's an old master who painted great works that have been remembered for the ages. It doesn't really matter who it is. Everyone